The start of free agency happens later today, but we already know the result of one of the Chicago Bulls free agents when Patrick Williams yesterday signed his contract extension with the Chicago Bulls for 5 years, $90 million. We're going to talk about what that could mean and signify for the future of DeMar DeRozan, as well as rumors around Zach LaVine that the Bulls may not be able to find a trade partner for him. We're going to get into all that plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content. So Patrick Williams yesterday signed a 5-year, $90 million contract that a lot of Bulls fans have reacted negatively to. You guys can go and check out that breaking news video. We haven't had any more details come out since that initial thing, so there's not really a lot more to add to it. At the end of the day, 5 years, $90 million, annual average salary of $18 million when it comes down to it. And I don't think that that's a bad deal for Patrick Williams. We can talk all day long about Patrick Williams living up to the hype around the 4th overall pick or not. When it comes down to it, Patrick Williams being a 40% three-point shooter and a defender with his size, he's going to get paid. That $18 million is slightly over the mid-level exception, which is $13 million. You're looking at Patrick Williams' contract being a mid-level exception deal probably by the second or third year of that contract. So that will eventually be a value contract. And that's not even saying, if that's not even without Patrick Williams excelling, right? If he takes a step up and starts hitting some of that development that we want to see from Patrick Williams and does it consistently, that deal can easily be a steal. As of right now, it's a fair deal for a 22-year-old who's shown the abilities that he's shown at this level. That just is what it is. It's basically a mid-level exception deal, and Patrick Williams has the chance absolutely to make that deal a steal when it all comes down to it. The only question is, can he stay healthy, and can he show that development? And I think when you look at it, and when I talked about the fit between players, you now go to him and Matas Buzelis being your forwards, right? And Buzelis maybe eventually being more of a 4. I think he's going to start his career off at the 3. Patrick Williams, who the Bulls have always and will always see as a 4. Get over it. It is what it is. The average size of a power forward in the NBA nowadays is 6'7", 213 pounds. Patrick Williams is bigger than all those milestones. He can be a power forward in the league. The bigger question around Patrick Williams is the mentality that's there, and will he be aggressive enough and focused enough for his skills to all round out to him being a really good NBA player. But what does this extension mean for the Chicago Bulls as free agency opens at 6 p.m. Eastern today, 5 p.m. Central Time? I think that it means ultimately that DeMar DeRozan is gone. That's just my personal opinion. I think that he will hit free agency today at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I wouldn't be surprised if DeMar DeRozan is probably signed by a team within the first 3 days of free agency. I wouldn't be surprised there. I think when you look at the path that the Chicago Bulls are going, as well as the fact there's been no momentum and apparently rumored no talks between the teams in a month or more, I think that all points to everybody understands it's time for this thing to end when it comes to DeMar DeRozan. I also think when you look at the money that Patrick Williams got, that $18 million salary, it puts you in a position where, again, unless you're moving Zach LaVine and not taking his full salary back, DeMar DeRozan is probably gone just for the fact that you have to pledge a full roster. We also got out yesterday that Torrey Craig picked up his option, so he will be back for this team next season. And then also Adama Sanogo got extended a qualifying offer, making him a restricted free agent. So there's a lot that the Bulls have kind of already done that all point towards a youth movement. Torrey Craig being there, it's a veteran option. Talked about it in that breaking news video that Torrey Craig very well may not finish his season as Chicago Bull, but he will at least start that season as Chicago Bull. And that may not even be true because they can move him during this free agent period since he did pick up his option as well. So we'll see ultimately what happens to it, but I do think DeMar DeRozan is gone. The Bulls are moving to a new phase, and the question just remains then is, do they feel confident in starting Matas Buzelis, or do they do something more kind of outside the box with starting Giddey, Kobe, Ayo at the 1, 2, and 3, Patrick Williams at the 4, and Nikola Vucevic, who's still more likely than not to stay around. Does he end up playing the 5? I think we got some questions there. We'll end up getting answers to that. Now, I want to be clear. This is all basically speculative based off what I'm seeing and what I'm reading. It very well could be this is the Bulls. If they do something crazy like re-sign DeMar DeRozan on the first day of free agency, That would be crazy. But it's not outside the realm of possibility because this is a Chicago Bulls organization. So we'll see how that all ends up shaking out when it's all said and done. But that's kind of my thought process. I do think we are embracing the youth movement. Patrick Williams being 22 years old, Josh Giddey, 21 years old, Mattis Bucilis will be 20 years old by the start of the season. The Bulls are embracing youth, but they still will need some veterans around. Javon Carter will still be around, whatever that's worth. Torrey Craig's now, as we know, is probably still going to be around. Nikola Vucevic, I don't think the Bulls are going to find a trade to move him. So I do think he's ultimately probably going to be on this roster as well. But we'll end up seeing. Now, the next big kind of domino, I guess, for the Chicago Bulls, if they can get it to fall, is a Zach LaVine trade. Now, we got Bobby Marks coming out yesterday, and he said, I repeat, that I think even if the Bulls attach their first-round pick, they would find it difficult to move Zach LaVine. A lot of people kind of presented it and reported on that as if he said, hey, the Bulls can't move Zach LaVine even with the first. He was giving his thought process on it. And it is an educated one, right? In the sense that you hear that how long the Bulls have been shopping Zach LaVine, the fact they can't get a deal done for Zach LaVine, it seems like, and that I've over the last week or so, I've been saying that if Zach is moved, it's probably going to be after the second wave of free agency, after teams strike out on their number one targets. And then if that's the case, you're not getting a whole hell of a lot back. We keep hearing that the Kings are the odds-on favorite to land Zach LaVine. I think we understand why there, especially them being a team that's now cleared themselves if they were to acquire Zach, would still be beneath the luxury tax, which allows them to use their mid-level exception. But the only question that kind of really remains for this Bulls team is how much change is still left to happen over this free agency period. Kind of the players that we still have questions around. Zach, who I just mentioned. DeMar. Of course, can the Bulls trade and move off of of Nikola Vucevic, which I doubt. At that point, you're still looking at how do you fledge a starting center? Is Adama Sanogo actually going to be in your plans at the NBA level next year instead of sitting around on the G League like he did most of last year? These are all things to look at when it comes down to it. And the Bulls salary cap situation as we go forth into this, it still right now doesn't look the best, but that's because we just have so much up in air when it comes down to it. We still don't know what's going to happen with Patrick Williams. With DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine, which could drastically change the Chicago Bulls' outlook. We're going in right now about $70 million over the salary cap. But again, beneath the luxury tax, so there's that aspect of it. But the Bulls still don't shape up to have considerable spending power. Now, if the Bulls don't re-sign DeMar DeRozan, they very well could have enough space, $30 million beneath the tax apron, and that's with Patrick Williams now locked in and signed, so that would free them up potentially to have enough money to use their mid-level exception to go after somebody, Isaiah Hartenstein. I'm just throwing out names, but that's if those players will be willing to come even for the mid-level exception. Many of you guys have brought up James Wiseman. Could he be a target for the Chicago Bulls if they look to move on from Vooch? And it's still difficult to give a lot of the details on this because we just don't know. For example, we don't know what they would get back in a case like that, right? Because if the Bulls end up getting a center back or working out a 3-team trade and somehow in all of that, Clint Capella comes back, for example, to the Chicago Bulls, if that type of thing were to happen, it gets a little bit more questionable on, all right, what are we doing now? Or what are we even looking at? What's our spending power in free agency? So there's a lot of things up in air right now for the Bulls. And I wish that we had the clarity. We don't. But that's what free agency is for. And as we start seeing some other deals, like once DeMar DeRozan signs elsewhere, if that's what happens, or the Bulls sign and trade him, it adds a lot clearer picture. If Zach LaVine is traded, even though I don't think it's going to happen until maybe after the first wave of free agency, that then could kind of make that picture more clear. But I think it all comes back to we don't know what this Bulls team's doing, and it's hard to really gauge without knowing what we're getting back in some of these deals. So free agency today is a big thing. We will be live multiple times, I'm sure, on the channel, as I'm sure news is just going to come through. Make sure you guys are following. Hit that subscribe button as well if you want to be notified as soon as we go live. With that said, it's Sunday. That means this episode's mainly built around your voicemails. Let's get into this first one. This one's from Corn.
Hey, what's the word, King? It's Corn. Man. Let's get right into it. Let's get right in motherfucking to it. All right, as I'm walking in work, see on my phone, we just signed Patrick Williams for 5 years for $90 million. Now, I know that there's a shitload of fucking Bulls fans right now that's going fucking crazy, up at arms, tripping the fuck out, losing their fucking mind, pulling their hair, punching the motherfucking air, like punching their air, you know what I mean? Like Cuba Gooding Jr. and motherfucking Boys in the Hood just pissed the fuck off right now that we signed him for 5 years, $90 million. Pump your motherfucking brakes, okay? Pump your brakes, y'all. $18 million a year for a kid that's 21, and by the end, well, he's 23, 24, the age, but I know by the time that the contract is up, he'd be 27. That means he'd be reaching his fucking prime. So great fucking move. And by that time, $18 million by that time when the motherfucking contract is up is pretty much a mid-level exception. But Acme, great fucking job. Great job. And another thing, man, this concludes it. Just let us know the youth movement is here. And that's another thing I want to talk about. The youth movement is here. It's time for us. It is. It's really time for us to let go of the mid shit. Okay? I get it. I love DeMar. I love AC. I love Vooch. I love Levine. I love them. They Bulls for life in my eyes. But at the same time, we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. Like I said, we really have to fucking do this. I am so happy right the fuck now. Not just with the Patrick Williams signing, but just sending the fucking clear message that we are going young. And it's okay. I'm going to say it just like this. You know me, I'm a West Coast cat, you know what I mean, Cali, you know what I'm saying, all that. So I'm going to say it just like how my boy would say it. We got to take an A minor setback to take a major comeback. You get it? Do y'all get it? We got to take an A minor setback to make a major comeback. Y'all get it? Love y'all. Love you, Hayes. C-Red Nation. Peace.
Corn, you got to stop leaving voicemails when you're prisoner of the moment, my boy. Like, you be so hyped, bro. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, it was exciting to hear that they locked in Patrick Williams, and we got to see what's gonna be next of that for Patrick Williams. His contract is really reasonable. And to your point, once people drop that expectations of whatever they thought he was gonna be being drafted fourth overall, and realize that Patrick Williams still has a skill set that is always going to get paid in the NBA. Patrick Williams is going to stick around in the NBA. And he's going to have a role. And at this point, Patrick Williams is a role player. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but just as the evolution of the game, $18 million is now turned into role player type money. It just has been. And if he does continue to develop, right, like we saw in December from Patrick Williams, if he gets to be more like that player, he's going to outlive the value of this contract. He's going to make this a value contract. I know some Bulls fans are like, well, he's getting paid more than Kobe. He's not more valuable than Kobe. Unfortunately, the market changes every single year. No, that does not mean that Kobe White's all of a sudden going to request a trade. This isn't soap operas. I get it. But it just comes down to that's what the market is. And Patrick Williams being almost 3 years younger than what Kobe White was when he entered free agency, more like 2, that also plays a part in that value as well. So, unfortunately, that's where we sit. And, not unfortunate. And we'll get to see how this growth continues for Patrick Williams. That's what we'll get to see. Ultimately, health, growth, it's going to make this deal a steal, possibly when it's all said and done. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Thomas.
What's going on, Hayes? This is Thomas from the D.C. area. I'm following today's NBA's transactions. Just saw Torrey Craig picked up his option, which was surprising to me, given the opportunity he had to possibly move to a contender. But then maybe not, because it seems like, with a lot of other teams declining other offers and, maybe with the uncertainty that he might be in a free agent market a little while for a minimum contract, that he possibly went with what was potentially just guaranteed in a moment. And maybe the Bulls move him at the trade deadline potentially. But I'm also just getting more resigned to the fact that, unless there's some crazy move that happens, we're probably starting this year with Zach LaVine and Vucevic. Starting the year with the combination of just the way the market is and everybody's tanking, and then teams like Detroit declaring that, they're going to take bad contracts back for, draft pick compensation. the reality is that this magical trade that we're looking for Vooch and Levine, at the end of the day, we don't have nothing to attach. We ain't got no assets. And all these trades that Bulls fans, these imaginary, make-believe, fairy tale trades that we got all on social media, thinking that a team is just supposed to take Levine and supposed to take Vooch just because we want to trade him, and just because the Bulls probably would be better off without him, we're probably going to have him on the roster. So I'm just already set in my mind that we're starting the year with the young guys and Levine and Vooch. That is what it is, and hopefully, maybe closer to the deadline, trade deadline, maybe they can rehab some value, or a team might get desperate and say, hey, let's make a trade for him. But that's it. That's all. That's my thought. Let me know what you think.
All right, Torrey Craig, I do think that Torrey Craig picking up his option, a big part of that had to be that maybe with his injuries, teams just weren't willing to give him the money he thought that he could get. You stay in Chicago, you are probably going to have an increased role with all the other veterans leaving, and if you can prove that you can stay healthy, because everybody knows what Torrey Craig is when he is healthy, he can be moved at the trade deadline. He can go back into free agency next year. So I do think that he could be used as trade bait, and we'll see what happens with that. I do think, though, as far as your last part, that we're probably going to start the season off with Zach and Vooch on the roster. I do think that things are looking to maybe move that way. And when it comes down to it with Zach, like I said, I think that there's a higher probability that Zach could hurt his trade value than help it. Just if he's hurt, or if the team doesn't look as good, or if he looks like crap, if he looks like he's slowing down the other players, stuff like that. But we'll ultimately see what comes down of it. Great voicemail though there. All right, let's get into this next one. This one's from Godo.
Yo, hey, Gatto again, man. Okay, so I was trying to wait to the second round to call, but we didn't move up like I was hoping we got. But with Silas falling to us, that's a good move, man. If he can turn into the 3-level threat that they hoping he could be, that'd be a nice fit. Now, so what I had mentioned the last time, now, even though they said they looking to shop Vooch, I don't know if that's a good thing to do unless they trying to switch it up, because who's going to grab boards? Pat Will can't grab rebounds at a high rate. Who's going to grab boards? The pick and pop situation, the pick and roll situation. Who's going to do that? He can hit an occasional three. So who's going to do that? I feel like Pat Will and Silas can do more of the off-ball cutting, the backdoor lob. I feel like they have the potential for that. Not every time, but the potential for that. Vooch should be able to stretch the floor, get to a spot in the mid-range, hit a corner three here and there. Who's going to fulfill that role? Now, if they would have moved up and grabbed Flip out of Duke, then you probably could have traded Vooch for a little less than nothing. But now, where are you going to get that production? Even if you do have a backup center, he at least got to rebound at a high rate or be able to score off the bench or something. We need something extra. If you're going to have a backup, we need somebody to rebound at a very high rate. And then at the 4, we need somebody to be able to rebound at a high rate and be able to put the ball in the bucket a little bit. Other than that, the wing players I feel like are solidified. Bustalis, Terry, all the young guys. See what you got in them. I'm not really a big fan of Terry, but we can see what we got in them and then work on the front court, because I don't know, man. We don't have no rebounding now that I'm looking at, and rebounding is a major part. So I'm definitely prepared for us to lose these rebounding battles and get blown out, unless we can get some rebounding help and some legitimate front court players, because P. Will is not a 4. I don't know why they see him as a 4.
Yeah, Mattis is a good pick for the Bulls. And, I've seen mainly praise for this, some pessimism from Bulls fans, which I always understand, considering where this franchise has been the last decade, right? Well, yeah, we'll see with it. Now, as far as your thoughts on Vooch, which you got really in the weeds there, if this team is going younger, you don't need to replace Vooch's production. It's not about replacing Vooch. Maybe it's about getting off some of that money, right? And then finding a serviceable center for now, and then you're still playing and trying to develop your young guys. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. that's always kind of the difficult prospect of this, right? Is you still want a center that's in there that doesn't hurt the growth of your young guys. But at the same time, you may be looking to move on from Vooch to save money, not have to pay that contract another year, right? Something like that. So we'll see. But I do agree that there is a good possibility that Vooch is back on the Chicago Bulls. Now, as far as P. Will, you ended that with saying P. Will isn't a 4. P. Will's a 4. And I went over the numbers before. He's taller and weighs more than the average size and weight of a power forward. The only difference is his mindset, his mentality. That's what needs to change for Patrick Williams. But the physical things, he can definitely play it for at the next level, at this level. We just got to see it. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Lore.
Hey, what up, man? This Lore from the South Side, man. First time caller. Look, man, I got a couple of things that I just wanted to put out there for Bulls Nation. First and foremost, man, the Zach LaVine slander it got to stop. It has to stop. I don't understand where it came from. I understand he's a flawed player, and him and Billy have had issues and all of that, but what we seem to forget as a fan base is how Zach carried us for 2 years by his damn self. The wins that we got were because of Zach. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, the problem it was never Zach. The problem is Billy Donovan and his coaching ability. The speculative talk around how good this team is going to be is completely predicated on how good of a coach Billy Donovan is able to be. How many times last season did we watch Billy make bad decisions in fourth quarters, like such as bringing Vooch back in when Drummond was already cooking for the late third, early fourth quarters. You know what I'm saying? A lot of those games we were competing in and actually came back, took the lead, and Billy decided that we're going to finish the game with Vooch. That's not a good decision coaching-wise. Secondly, him leaving Julian Phillips on the bench, giving him a role, Julian excelling in that role, showing promise, I would say, in that role, and then Billy just deciding not to play him, a coach's decision. It's the problem, again, the problem has never been Zach LaVine. All players are flawed. They have their flaws. Nobody's perfect. But to say, that he wouldn't be a good fit or we need to just move away from Zach, that's insane to me. It's outrageous, and it needs to end, man. Like, Zach is a hell of a player. When he was a couple years ago, he was arguably the top 5, top 10 shooting guard in the league. And anybody who disagrees wasn't watching games. I watch every Bulls game from the south side of Chicago, born and raised. You feel me? So that's just some of my thoughts on it, man. As far as, the Caruso trade for Giddey, I wasn't happy because I'm an avid Caruso fan. As Stacey King would say, turn up the heat, turn up the AC on their ass, you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't happy, but looking back at it and looking on it, objectively, it was a great trade. And I see the direction that AK was thinking about when making that decision. He's a hell of a playmaker. He has good size. If he puts on some weight, that size will be increased tremendously. I'm running a little long here, man, but I had a couple thoughts. Again, first time caller, Lord, from the South Side, man. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. We love it. You help me while I'm on this road doing my trucking thing, so keep doing it, man. Love. Go Bulls.
I agree that Zach LaVine isn't the problem. And anybody who tries to just make Zach LaVine the problem is wrong. But you say that nobody remembers when he carried us. The problem is he didn't carry us to anything. And that's not completely on him, but that's also he didn't carry us in a way that even a star-level player looks like when they're carrying a team, quote-unquote. So he didn't carry us to anything meaningful, so that's always going to have an impact on how fans view him. And yeah, Billy Donovan is flawed also, but we can't blame it all on Billy Donovan either. We can't talk about the team being in games, but then only give Billy Donovan the blame if we don't eventually win the game. Part of also the fact of why we were in some of those games is Billy Donovan's coaching. And keep in mind, I'm not a Billy Donovan guy. I'm not, right? I would love to see the Bulls move on from Billy Donovan, but it isn't all on Billy Donovan either. He does things that definitely hurt. He doesn't use players to the best of their ability or put them in the right situations all the time. He's just not that guy. But he's not the only problem here either. I'm not going to say that no one aspect of this thing is the problem. It's the totality of it all. And that's my personal opinion on it. Now, as far as Julian Phillips, when he started playing, I believe only stopped being consistent because of injury. So I get it that he didn't have a very consistent role to start. But then when Billy Donovan started trusting him, that's when Julian Phillips' body started giving out on him. So, let's hope that that's something that we see as far as that Billy Donovan does use the young players better. And we'll see it. And moving Zach LaVine isn't just because of production on or off the court. The other factors also involve the contract, the time frame that we have to compete, and can we realistically do it in that contract? So The moving from Zach LaVine isn't just to say that Zach is just the problem, but it's to say that in the time frame that we have, much like with moving on from DeMar DeRozan, we don't think that we can put something together that is meaningful in this time. That's at least my thought process, but great voicemail, Lord. Hope to hear from you more often. Very well thought out there. Let's get into this next one. This one's from Brando King.
Yo, what's up, Hayes, bro? It's Brando King. Shout out to the Chicago Bulls fan club Facebook chat. Yeah, man, real quick, I just wanted to drop this on you. What do you think about the Bulls holding on to LaVine until the trade deadline? You know, I feel like to trade him now would not only you already know that you're not going to get the value that he's worth right now. So why not give him a shot with Josh Giddey and Kobe White and see how this lineup works? You know, and give Zach LaVine a chance to increase his value. But if it doesn't work, you know, you can just start it over again at the trade deadline. So let me know what you think, bro. Appreciate you. Peace.
Holding on to LaVine until the deadline, here's what I'll say. I said in an earlier voicemail that I truly think holding on to LaVine has a higher probability of ending badly than it does good. And the reason why is just simply put, like, what if he gets hurt again? What if he doesn't look good? What if the Bulls look good except for when Zach LaVine's in the game? Like, these are all things that can hurt him. There's one avenue that helps Zach LaVine's trade value in all of this. But two, yes, the longer he's on the Bulls, the less of that contract the other team has to pay. And if Zach LaVine comes in and balls out, and if he does that, yeah, that trade value is going to shoot back up. We'll end up seeing what happens with that. Great voicemail, Brando. And the last voicemail for today, this one's from Matt.
Hey, what's up, Hayes? This is Matt calling from Grand Rapids, from northwest suburbs of Chicago, though. First time call, but wanted to say, since we now have signed Patrick Williams to an extension, I think that we need to seriously look at Patrick Williams and compare his skill set possibly to that of Joe Johnson. If you look at their body types, they've got very similar abilities and way that they move. And I think that is a skill set that Patrick Williams could possibly develop, because Joe Johnson's got good shooting. He's got the ability to go down and post up, but he has a certain physicalness that I think would be a good way of looking at copy and pasting to try to build Patrick Williams into something similar. Let me know what you think. Hope to see this in one of the videos. Thanks for listening.
Patrick Williams comp to Joe Johnson. I won't lie. When I initially heard this voicemail, I was like, what? Joe Johnson? But then you got to think about who Joe Johnson was. A bigger guard, 6'7", never really was kind of like the most athletic, right, guards, but was a physical guy, was a bruiser in a lot of ways, right? But still did have skill. He was a very skilled shooting guard at that time. And that's a very different position, very different skill sets needed. But I see what you mean as far as developing, because Patrick Williams' ability to shoot, he has ability to put the ball on the floor some, right? If he moves without the ball, getting to the rim, finishing at the rim. So I get what you're saying, but I think ultimately is that Patrick Williams has to develop. That's just what it comes down to. He needs to develop, and he hasn't done that at the way that fans want, or that he even should want, and that the team should want yet. And hopefully those things start to change, and we start to see better from Zach in those areas and in that case. Let's hope so. But all right, guys, that's my time for today, but I'm sure it won't be the last time you guys see me today. Free agency opens today. We'll probably have a live going during the opening of free agency as well. This is going to be a fun time, guys. Make sure you guys stay tuned in and locked in with us. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.